All right. So we are going to do a practice quiz because we're going to have a quiz in our next class period. So here comes the practice.
I'll see you on Tuesday.
Yeah, Monday.
Yes, sir. I'll see you on Tuesday, Mrs. Ford. Hey, thank you, George. Thank you. That's why I don't want to go on retreat. Bro, that's why I'm not going. I don't know what she needs for. That's what I'm saying. You want to retreat and miss it all. She teaches. Well, she teaches so fast. You can't learn. That's what I'm saying. I'm not going on that retreat, bro. That shit going to wait like in the school year.
Here we go. Come on, guys. Here we go. Time to review. Okay, now the actual quiz will, like before, will not be this long, okay? The actual quiz will come from these problems though, all right? So we need to know how to do these problems. Kids, our test is coming up. So we really, really, really need to be getting this solidified. So, here we go. The first problem says find the exact value of the tangent of 3 pi over 2. If I were you, the first thing I would do is figure out how many degrees 3 pi over 2 is.
270.
Yes, it's up here. It's 270 because pi is 180 divided by 2 is 90 times 3 is 270. So we're finding the tangent of 270. Now, think about that for a minute. 270. Where is 270? Isn't that on an axis?
Yeah.
So when it's on an axis, we have to draw our circle. And 270 is down here. Remember, this is 0, 90, 180. So we're talking about right there. Whenever we draw that circle, we're going to let the radius be 1. And if the radius is 1, then we're coming down 1 step. So that would be what point? What would be the ordered pair down here? 0, negative 1. Which means x is 0 and y is negative 1. X is first and then y, right? Now, what is tangent? And please don't say opposite over adjacent, because that is tangent, but that only works in a triangle.
Is it X over Y?
It's y over x. So tangent is y over x. So that will be negative 1 over 0. Oh shoot, that one is undefined. Remember, 0 on the top is okay, but when you have a 0 on the bottom, it's undefined. All right, cosine negative 240. This one's already in degrees. And we don't have to worry about being a line. This one's not on an axis, right? So where is negative 240? Well, pay attention now. It's negative. So what does that mean? That it's a negative angle. Now go down. So I'm still starting at 0, but I'm going down. Where is 240? Do I need to keep going? Yeah. Right about here. Remember, every quadrant is 90. So 90, 180, all the way up here would be 270, so it's somewhere in there. Now, this is 180, but I went 240. So how much past 180 did I go? How many? 60, absolutely. It's 240 minus 180, right? I went 60 degrees past 180 to get to 240. Now this triangle is special That's a 30, 60, 90 triangle. So across from the 60 is root 3. Now, be careful, is anything negative? You have to make sure you mark them negative. The 1 is negative, absolutely, because you went left and up. So x is negative. Now I want cosine. Cosine is adjacent over hypotenuse, so isn't my answer negative 1/2? Yes, indeed it is. All right, cosecant, 7 pi over 6. What do you think about that? All right, he's already figured out it's 210. And for those of you that aren't quite as fast as David, pi is 180, divided by 6 is 30, times 7 is 210. So now that's a positive 210, so I'm going to go this way. And now I'm down here, right? Isn't that right? 90, 180, this is 210. How much past 180 is 210? In other words, what is this little angle right here? 30 degrees. So I have another special triangle. Across from the 30 always goes to 1. Okay? Anything negative in that one? Now the 2 will never be negative. Remember, your hypotenuse is never negative, so you're never marking it. You're either marking x or y.
Both of them.
They're both negative because we went left and down. Remember, this is x and this is y. In quadrant 3, aren't they both negative? Yeah, you know that. All right, cosecant. Cosecant is the reciprocal of the sine. Sine is opposite over hypotenuse. So cosecant is going to be hypotenuse over opposite, which will be 2 over negative 1 or negative 2.
I have a question about B. Why did you go past the 240? Like, why would it? I'm confused. Like, why it went into the 180?
No, this whole angle was 240. I have to go 240 degrees. So this would be 90. This is 180.
Oh, it's
That's 270. So it's not quite to 270. So that whole angle is 240.
okay. Thank you.
All right, next. What is the equation? Okay, so we're not going to have a calculator tomorrow. So I'm not asking you to solve this. I just want you to set up the equation for this.
Wait, so what are we gonna do? Because we don't see you until Tuesday, so we have to remember all this over the weekend.
It's on video and it's in Schoology. You can make a new copy and do it again on Monday.
I don't have a printer.
Make a copy before you leave.
Gotcha.
Here we go.
We don't have school Monday.
Chill.
Yep, no zooming or anything on Monday. You have the day off. What is the equation for this thing? Jaden is standing on the roof,
Yeah, I am.
yearning for his Precal book on the ground. If the book is 53 feet from the base, and Jaden's angle of depression is 19, how high up is Jaden? So again, what in the world?
Bring her in.
What is it? I mean, I know what it is, but what's the story here?
It's psychology class.
Mary Kate.
I know. It's so funny. Mary Kate. I'm good, but I don't want to give his phone back.
Okay.
Sorry, we're
Alright.
not excited. We just got a quiz put on us.
Hooray!
Not class ever.
Okay.
That's
All right, so
adjacent
here we go.
over hypotenuse. No.
All right. Okay, so now your job is to simply write the equation. You don't have to do anything with it, just write the equation. So remember, the equation that you write is going to be sine, cosine, or tangent. So look at the scenario, which one are you gonna pick? Nope, it's a tangent problem. You guys, it's really simple. You just look at the sides that you have. Here's your angle. Which side is this? Opposite. Which side is this? SOHCAHTOA. What function uses opposite and adjacent? Tangent. That's how you know. The sides are going to tell you which one it is. Girl?
So you're doing opposite. So it's tangent, but opposite side is A.
So it's x over 53. That's your equation. You're writing an equation. It's x over 53. These problems are two different places in your notes, guys. All right, so tangent 19 equals x over 53, and that's it. All you have to do is write the equation, because you need a calculator to solve it. All right, number 3. Find the angle whose sine is 1/2. So remember, this means find the angle. Okay? Now, when that's a positive number, I know I'm going to draw my picture where? Quadrant 1. And sine is opposite over hypotenuse. So at this point, you should recognize you have a special triangle, and this angle would be how big? 30. So that's the answer to the question. It's a 30-degree angle. All right, so the tangent of the angle whose cosine is 3/5. Now, this one looks harder, but it's actually a little bit easier. Cover this up. Where do I draw this picture? Quadrant 1 again. And this time it says the cosine is 3/5. So I'm covering that up, I'm just doing that. So the cosine is 3/5. Right? Now, do the Pythagorean Theorem. You don't know that angle. This is not a 30, 60, 90. These are the 30, 60, 90 numbers. This is nothing. You don't know. But you can find this side, right? It is 4. The Pythagorean Theorem says a squared plus b squared equals c squared. So the work that Jaden did is this, to get that b squared equals 16, so b equals 4. Now, once we figure out that that's 4, then we can answer the question. So far, you've just drawn the picture. Now you're going to answer the question. What's the tangent in that picture? Tangent is 4 over 3. Yep, 4 over 3. Tangent is opposite over adjacent. Opposite over adjacent. All right. Oh, now we're going to sketch. So we have to remember what shape we're talking about here. We're doing a cosine. Okay, so let's just keep in the back of our mind, our basic shapes are this one, and this one, and this one. Okay? Yeah, well, okay, this, yeah. So these are the normal pictures. If there's a negative in front front, they're upside down. So you'd have Valley Hill, this would be like this, and this would be like this. These are the straight normal pictures. Now, which one is which here? Which one of these is the cosine?
Second.
The middle one, that's the cosine. So that's the picture you're gonna draw. So without doing anything else, you can just come over here and you can draw the picture. Okay? Now, remember, each curve stops in the same place that it starts. So if it starts here, it ends here, okay? If it starts up, it ends up. That's what's happening here. Now, under normal circumstances, these are 1 and -1. What are they in this problem? 2 and -2. That is called the amplitude. So if you had to give the amplitude, you would say 2. Under normal circumstances, these are the quadrants. So 90, 180, 270, 360. Now I'm writing them down below because I'm going to be changing them, right? And I got to put the real answers up here. These are normal, always. But because of that, all of these have to be divided by a half, which is the same as timesing by 2. So instead of 90, it'll be 180, 360, 540, 720. That's your period. So if the question happens to say, what's the period? You'll say 720 degrees. That's where it ends. That's one cycle of it. If it had been a sine problem, we would do everything exactly the same, right? Except we'd have this shape. Okay. Is the tangent of 500 positive or negative? Well, it's one or the other. You have to explain your answer, so I guess we'll cut it. Where is 500? If I drew 500 degrees, where would that be? Well, doesn't it go all the way around? And then some? That's the interesting part. How much extra does it go? 140? How do we get 140? 500 minus 360? So 360 is all the way around. Then we have another 140. So where would 140 put me? Second quadrant, right here. So the angle looks like this if I drew it. If I am in that quadrant, I know that this is negative and this is positive, right? Tangent is opposite over adjacent. Remember, this is always the angle you're looking at. So opposite over adjacent, whoops, not -1, would be positive over negative. So the answer is negative. And how do you explain that? Because in quadrant 2, x is negative and y is positive. Or you could say adjacent is negative and opposite is positive. So that's an easy question. To answer it, all you got to do is figure out where you are. Where is the angle?
I'll get the right is plus over minus, or positive over negative.
No, you say it's negative, so you would say it's negative, and then you would explain because either x is negative and y is positive, that would be one way, or you could say adjacent is negative and opposite is positive. All right, number 6. We are told that we are in quadrant 2. So that's nice. We don't have to figure that out. We're just told we're in quadrant 2. And we are told that the sine is 5/6. Okay, does everybody get that? That's the given. Opposite over hypotenuse is 5/6. Triangle in quadrant 2. Can I find the missing side?
Yeah.
I always find the missing side. So go ahead and find the missing side and tell me what it is. You're using your Pythagorean Theorem. Square root of 11, I love it. 36 minus 25. A squared plus B squared equals C squared. Perfect. But what, Farrell? It is negative root 11. It absolutely is negative. Why does it have to be negative? Because it's x. Left. Right? Quadrant 2. X is negative. Now, what do I want to know about that triangle? Cosine. What's the cosine? Adjacent over hypotenuse. SOHCAHTOA. Cosine. Adjacent over hypotenuse. Root 11 over 6. Negative root 11 over 6. This is one of those problems that on the last quiz, I had you find everything. Right? You had to find sine, cosine, tangent, everything. Here, I've just asked you for one. Okay. What is the period and amplitude of 7 tan 5x? Amplitude, it don't say 0, say none. So you either that's an empty set symbol or you write the word none. Because there's no top and bottom. Make sure you watch that video. That was your video lesson. Okay. Now what about period? Well, what is the normal period of the tangent?
90.
Actually, it's 180. The normal period is pi, 180. This one is going to be divided by 5. This number divides the period. So 180 divided by 5 is 36. So the period's 36 degrees. Those of you that remember what the tangent looks like, it goes from negative 90 to 90. That's the normal tangent, negative 90 to 90. So that distance is 180. That's the period.
Instead of like writing that whole thing out, can we just do it even? Just divide the. Because I drew like it down for like the negative 8 to the negative 8.
Oh, no, you don't, we weren't sketching this. We were just answering period and amplitude. That's good sketching practice, but we weren't sketching it. That wasn't the directions. It just says what's a period and amplitude. All right, how many radians is 20 degrees? Pi over 180 equals x over 20, right? How many radians is 20 degrees? One of the first things we learned in this chapter. So 180x equals 20 pi, and x equals 20 pi over 180. Remember, we can cancel zeros. So what is that, pi over 9? 1 pi over 9, 2 over 18. And finally, number 9, another thing we learned way back at the beginning, find the radius. What's our little formula when we have an arc length problem?
Radians over radians.
Arc equals radius times radians. What do we know in this problem? We know the arc is 10, and we know the radian is 2. And we just don't know the radius, but we can find it by doing what? Dividing by 2. So this is going to be 5 inches. The radius has the same unit as the arc. So if the arc is in inches, the radius will also be in inches. No, we don't chill. Are you kidding me? We're already chilling. Now what we're going to do is, Okay, so let me just, as you have pointed out, the timing is not ideal with our wacko schedule and everything. So you don't need to do anything. I would suggest that sometime between now and Tuesday, you go to Schoology. You can do it right on Schoology. You don't need to print it. You can do it right there in Notability and practice this again. Okay? Because the quiz we take on Tuesday will come from these, what were there, 9 questions or 10 questions. It'll come from there. Okay? Oh, but only be some. All right? Now, get out your practice test.
That was bathroom and floor.
Now,
I need time to read my mind.
all right, so we're finding our practice test.
You have an extra breakfast for us,
I think I stapled it and made it 2, if not just put 1 from Schoology. I think it's in that packet of stuff I gave you. Okay. Now,
Well, this one's big, man.
well, it's 3 of them. We're going to do all 3. So here we go. This work will be good quiz review also, David. No, guys, I can't keep, I handed them out. If you were absent, you got it in a packet. Get on Notability, or get on Schoology, do it in Notability. Yes, it says pre-test. It doesn't say practice test, it says pre-test. So it's chapter 4, pre-test. Okay, so now we're going to change into degrees. That's question number 1. Please do not waste any more time looking for the paper. Just start writing this down. Pre-test, here's number 1. We're changing it into degrees. Well, this is easy. To change into degrees, we just know pi is 180, divided by 5 is 36, and 36 times 3 is 108. So it's 108 degrees. Now, I am old, do this all the time. I can do that stuff in my head. If you can't, you just write it over the side. 180 divided by 5, or do the math, and then times by 3.
Can't be doing my head.
No, yeah, if you can't find the paper, that's fine. So pi is to 180 as something is to 250. This is a quiz question. Change into radians. Only on the practice it was a different angle, but this is exactly the same idea. So what do? We cross multiply and divide. Then always reduce your fraction. So it looks like x is going to equal what? 25 pi over 18? This next one is also a quiz question, but this is a little harder. The quiz question won't be this hard. What makes this problem hard? Can anybody tell me? What makes that a hard problem?
A degree.
Yeah, the angle is not in radians. Remember, to use our formula, we have to take the radius, which is 10, times the radians. And we do not have the radians. This is the angle, but it's in degrees. And you can't put 40 here because 40 is a degree measure. So we're going to do exactly what we just did. We're going to change 40 degrees into radians so that we can plug it into our formula. So pi is to 180. as x is to 40. So this problem is hard because it's two parts. Step one is you got to change your angle into radians, okay? So pi is to 180 as x is to 40. So 180x equals 40 pi. And x equals, cancel out the zeros, 4 over 18, which will reduce to 2 over 9. Now, that's not the answer, though, is it? Remember, this is a two-part problem. That is the radian measure. That is this angle right here. So once I know what that angle is, then I can multiply it by 10, radius times radians, and get my answer. So 20 pi over 9. Put that 10 over 1, then you can just multiply straight across. 20 pi over 9 would be the answer. So that problem's on your quiz, but it's not that hard. But on the test, maybe it'll be hard like this. Okay, the next problem's on your quiz too, but not all those pieces, just one piece. So this is good quiz review. All right, tell me what 180 to 270 means. Who can explain what that means? Where am I, Gabe? Quadrant 3, very good. Now, for those of you that are wondering how Gabe knew that, he knows that our angles in standard position are labeled like this. So if you're between 180 and 270, that means you have to be down here, right? Because there's 180 and there's 270. So this is just another way of saying quadrant 3. Now, what do I know about this picture? I know the tangent is 1/2. TOA, opposite over adjacent. What are you doing? It's really not funny.
Okay.
Yeah. All right. Now, this is the tricky part. I know it said 1/2, but aren't they both negative? It's actually -1 over -2. And then let's do the Pythagorean Theorem and find that third side. √5, very good. A squared plus b squared equals c squared. So it's going to be √5. 1 plus 4 is 5. And now we need all of it. This is one of those big fill in the blanks. So we need all of those things. So let's keep SOHCAHTOA in our mind. And we need sine, cosine, tangent. Well, tangent's 1/2, they told us that. And cosecant, secant, and cotangent. If the tangent is 1/2, then I know my cotangent is 2 over 1 or 2, right? That's, I don't need to worry about that. Okay? What about the other things? What's sine?
-1√5/5.
Exactly, very good, you even rationalized it, -√5/5. And then cosecant will be -√5/1 or -√5. Cosecant is the flip of the sine. Remember how you do 3 of them and the other 3 are just the flips? All right, what's cosine?
-2√5/5.
Perfect, -2√5/5, you're exactly right. And then the flip of that's the secant, which is -√5/2. So that is an easy problem if you draw your picture and do the Pythagorean theorem right. a whole bunch of practice. Your quiz will have one of these. What's the first thing I need to do when it says cosine 3 pi over 4?
Change it to degrees.
Change it to degrees. So pi over 4, 180 over 4 is 45, and 3 of those is 135. So 135. Now what do I do next? Draw it. Gotta draw it. Where will 135 be drawn? Remember, we start here. Second quadrant, yep. And then, knowing that this is 180 and this is 135, how much past 135 is 180? What's this distance right here? This is the angle I need.
45.
45. Aren't these always going to be 45 or 30 or 60? Yeah, that's all I can handle. So that's a 45, so 1 root 2. 45, 45, 90. Negatives. This one's negative, not that one. Just this one right here. I want cosine. What's cosine? Negative 1 over root 2. Adjacent over hypotenuse, which is negative root 2 over 2.
How do you know which one to put the negative?
It depends on the quadrant you're in.
No, I know, but isn't there always like one, there's always one negative next to the one quadrant, right?
If you're
in quadrant two.
here, x is negative. Here, they're both negative. Here, y is negative.
Okay.
So if you're not in quadrant 1, something will be negative, but in quadrant 3, they're both negative. All right, tangent 5 pi over 6. How many degrees is 5 pi over 6?
150.
150. So this is the tangent of 150, and she got that. Pi is 180, divided by 6 is 30, times 5. So isn't 150 just like that? I mean, isn't it pretty much the same picture, sort of?
Yeah.
But the angle's not 45 this time. Since that's 150, and that's 180, this angle will be 30.
Won't let you get lower than the 8.
So we have 1, 2, root 3. Remember, across from the 30 is always the 1, right?
Root 3 is negative.
The root 3 is negative, very good. And I want tangent, which is opposite over adjacent. So 1 over negative root 3, or negative root 3 over 3. The next one, I'm going to go ahead and just change it to 180. Is that okay? It's sine pi. I said sine 180. Where's 180? Yeah, it's on the line, isn't it? Which means I'm going to need to draw a circle. Isn't 180 right here? So if I'm drawing a circle, the radius is 1. Tell me about my point. The radius is 1.
Negative 1, 0.
My point is negative 1, 0. Very good, Jaden. Which means x is negative 1 and y is 0. X, y. Hector, you awake back there, buddy? Now, you're missing all the action. Now, what sign? Don't say opposite over hypotenuse. It's y over r. And if we put y over r, we get 0 over 1, which is 0. No, 0 on top is okay. So 0 over 1 is 0. one more. Secant,
Not looking at me every time.
secant 5 pi over 3. In your homework, I've noticed some of you are changing that. You're saying secant 300. 180 divided by 3 is 60 times 5 is 300. And you're stopping. Kids, that's not the answer. You need a fraction. You need the secant. So you need to draw 300, which is all the way around to here. Would you agree with that? So here's 300 and here's 360. How much is that right there? 60. So that's a root 3, that's a 1, that's a 2. And then like Claire said, something's going to be negative.
-3.
Root 3 is going to be negative again. Because it's down. Y is negative. X is positive. Secant. What is secant?
Hypotenuse over adjacent.
It's the reciprocal of the cosine. Cosine is adjacent over hypotenuse, so this is going to be exactly what you said. Hypotenuse over adjacent, so the answer is 2.
Now we chill.
This is the most fun you're going to have today, Dayton. So just,
Yeah.
They use the pink sheet.
that thing should be memorized by now, you guys. You're better than that. All right, no, we got 2 more of these. Now, this we talked about very recently. We are looking for an angle. See the difference? See how this has a little -1, and these other problems we just finished didn't have that? This means figure out an angle. You're going to answer with an angle here. Now, where will this angle be? Well, that's a negative number, and it's a sine. Does anybody remember quadrant 4? Remember sine, tangent, and cosecant, if they're negative, are drawn in 4. When you see this notation right here. What I'm saying only applies to this notation. Sine, tangent, cosecant. I gave you all that. That should be in your notes. Okay. Now, I'm going to label this triangle opposite over hypotenuse. You should immediately recognize those numbers,
30, 69.
and you should be able to tell me that's a 60-degree angle because it's across from the root 3. But since the angle is going down, right, it's below, we don't say 60, we say -60. So the answer is -60. Because anytime you come down, the angle's negative. Now this one is exactly the same kind of problem, but it's a cosine. And it's negative. So if it's a cosine and it's negative, talking about this notation, negative number, it's drawn in quadrant 2. Go back and look at that list I gave you. When we went through these problems, I made a list. I think it was written right here on the board for cosine, cotangent, and secant are in quadrant 2. Zoom learning sucks, people, but it's what we have, and you got to pay attention when we're doing it. All right, cosine, -1 over root 2. You should immediately recognize that this angle is 45 degrees. because you have a 1, 1 root 2 triangle. 45 is not the answer. Negative 45 is not the answer. You gotta do exactly what Jaden said, and that is you gotta start where we start and go all the way around.
So is it just 90 plus 45?
So it's 135 degrees. And I think you should use 180 as your basis. It's 180 minus 45. Daryl?
So the last one went down, that one goes around.
No. It depends which quadrant you're drawn in. If you're in the 4th quadrant, to get to this angle here, we just come down. Over here, to get to that angle, we have to start here. There's no other place to start. So we go there. And the rules say this negative has to be here. This negative has to be here. So if you're in quadrant 4, you're just going to come straight down. But if you're in quadrant 2, you got to go all the way around to that angle.
Quadrant 3.
You're never in quadrant 3 in these problems. These problems are defined. Remember, kids, if this number is positive, we draw it in quadrant 1. If it's negative, and it's a sine, tangent, or cosecant, it's in 4. If it's negative, and it's a cosine, cotangent, or secant, it's in 2. Those are the rules. Now, here's your thinking question. In which quadrant is the sine positive and the cotangent negative? So you have 4 choices, 1, 2, 3, or 4. And by the way, as soon as you put a negative in there, you know it's not 1, right? 1's out. So you basically have 3 choices. So we got to figure out in these, this one's out, in these 3 quadrants, where is the sine positive? Now, sine goes with which letter, X or Y? Y. So if sine is positive, Y is positive. Okay. The only places that Y is positive is right here, right? You've already said it can't be this one because we have a negative. So the answer is quadrant 2. Now we're going to sketch.
You not my mama, bro.
You know, guys, we have a choice. We don't, like, if we're in an academic class, we're not doing practice tests. If we're in an honors class, we're not doing practice tests. We don't have to do these. If it's boring for you and you'd rather just take the test and be done with it, I'm all for it. Okay? I'm doing this for one reason, and that is to help you be successful. But that's your choice, right? So you know what you're going to get from me every day. You're going to get as much math as I can pack in. And if we're not reviewing, we'll be doing new stuff. Right? Suck it up and deal with it. All right, here we go. We're going to graph a cosine. Now, the first thing, this is a quiz question potentially. The first thing I need to do is stop a minute. What is the shape? It's a cosine. So I'm going to go ahead and draw my cosine. Remember, it has to stop where it starts. So it's going to stop right here. This is its stopping place because that was its starting place. So there's the shape I'm drawing. I also know that these are 2/3 and negative 2/3, right? Because the amplitude is 2/3.
Right.
So the only thing left to figure out is where it crosses, where it bottoms out, where it crosses, and where it ends. So you have 4 points to figure out. And normally, those 4 points would be 90, 180, 270, and 360.
You gotta multiply them all by 4.
But this has changed those, right? That's why I wrote them down here, because they're gonna change. This number divides by a fourth. Well, like he said, dividing by a fourth is the same as multiplying by four. So 90 times 4, so that's going to be 360. 180 times 4 is 720. 270 times 4 is 1080. And 360 is 1440. And that's all there is.
And it's 2/3 and the period is 1440.
Amplitude is 2/3, and the period is 720. Yep, if you have to list that, that's exactly right. Or, not 720. No, 1440. Thank you, 1440. That's your period, the end point, 1440. All right, that was easy enough. We're gonna do one more. We're gonna do B. Y equals 2 tan. All right, first thing we do is stop and think, what does a tangent look like? Well, it's got an asymptote here and an asymptote here, and it goes up through the origin, right? That's it, that's your tangent. Now, do we have any labels on our y-axis?
No.
Nope. So, we kind of just ignore that and say there is no amplitude. But we do have to label my two asymptotes.
180.
So normally it'd be negative 90 and 90, right? Those are the normal labels on the asymptotes. Look, is there a number in there to change it? No, so it's going to say negative 90 and 90.
So what does the 2 do? Nothing?
No, well, no, it changes the curvature, but we don't worry about it. It makes it a little steeper curve. The period is how far it is from start to finish, so that would be 180 degrees, because from negative 90 to positive 90 is 180, right? Okay, well, we'll pick up there next time.
Are those supposed to comment the test on
Practice